Hey guys, Jenny here. So a couple days ago, I was talking about how the American Academy of Pediatrics now believes, or wants you to believe, that obesity is genetic, it is biological, it does not have anything to do with your lifestyle, and it is okay for children to get weight loss drugs and surgery. And so I'm curious, how many of you wonder, what did we actually eat in this country before all of this was an issue? Like back in the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, even the 1800s, when people were actually eating the food that they grew. What did that look like, and what did our health look like? So I was at an antique festival a few years ago, and I found some really cool nutrition posters from the 1940s. And they're really cool because, so in the middle it says, the U.S. needs us strong, right before the war. Eat from each food group every day. And you want to know how they broke down food groups? You keto guys are going to love me because butter was a food group in the 1940s. So the 7 food groups that was being promoted by the USDA, and I have a poster, I'm going to post a picture of it, was 1, green and yellow vegetables. 2 was oranges, tomatoes, grapefruit, and then a few other greens were listed. 3 was any other fruits and vegetables. 4 was dairy, 5 was protein, 6 was grains, and 7 was butter or fortified margarine. Now it's really interesting that instead of breaking these up by plant product, I guess, they really broke them down by nutrients. We have 3 different categories of fruits and vegetables, and it's not just fruit. It's like these have vitamin A, these have, your vitamin K and your vitamin C. So that was really interesting to me. It was also really interesting how butter was its own food group, and if you weren't going to get real butter from, back then they were pasture-raised cows, you milk them, you take the cream, you churn the butter yourself. And if you couldn't get that, then the recommendation was vitamin A fortified margarine, because they knew how important vitamin A was. And it says also, in addition to eating all of that food, eat anything else you want, which is really interesting, because if you do eat all of that food in a day, you're probably not going to be very hungry. Plus, if that is the basis of your diet, you're not going to be craving stuff. You're not going to be craving sugar. You're not going to be craving, sweets and chips and salty stuff. And it's just so interesting. So keep in mind, this was a poster to keep us strong for World War II. So what happened after World War II? Nazis from Germany came over to work in the government, to work in the FDA. They created Bayer. Bayer is a pharmaceutical company that also creates herbicides and fertilizer for our crops. So isn't that interesting that after World War II happened and all of that was established, all of these recommendations started changing, and then obesity skyrockets. So as of 2018, 30% of adults are overweight, 42% of adults are obese, and 9% of adults are severely obese. So that is 82% of our country that's overweight or obese. And you can say, BMI isn't accurate, and it's not always, but it's great for general numbers. And even if we discount that the BMI calculates overweight too easily, let's just throw out the overweight. So we're talking 50% of our country was obese by 2018, and that was before, the lockdowns and before the COVID-15 and all of that stuff. So this is not a coincidence. Our DNA did not change in 50 years. If it did, then there was a reason for it, because it didn't change in the last 6,000 years. So lots of interesting things, and something that I would love to try, if anybody's interested, is to have people go back to this diet. Go back to what they ate in the 40s. Go back to what the recommendations were before all that major corruption. I mean, there's always been some in the background. But back when the recommendations were to eat real food. And yeah, greens was still a food group, but it wasn't recommended to be like 60% of your diet. It's just get some in your day. So if you're interested in doing this little experiment and seeing what happens to you, whether it's weight loss, whether it's inflammation, joint pain, other health, heart issues, if you're interested to see what would happen if we go back to government regulations in the 40s, when their goal was to have us strong and healthy so that we could be productive during the war. If you're interested in that, comment below. I would love to know what your questions are and what your thoughts are on this.